$1,000. The wonder was that Rafferty hadn't already demanded repayment. But if she sold the cattle, what good was the ranch? She'd been depending on the cattle sales to keep her going, and without that income, she'd have to sell the ranch anyway. It was so hard to think of letting the ranch go. She had almost begun to hope that she might be able to hold on to it. She'd been afraid to hope, had tried not to, but still, that little glimmer of optimism had begun growing. Now she'd failed at this, just as she'd failed at everything else in her life, as daughter, wife, and now rancher. Even if Rafferty gave her an extension on the loan, something she didn't expect to happen, she had no real expectation of being able to pay it off when it came due again. The naked truth was that she had no expectations at all. She was merely hanging on. Well, she wouldn't gain anything by putting it off. She had to talk to Rafferty, so it might as well be now. The clock on the wall said it wasn't quite 9:30. Rafferty would still be up. She looked up his number and dialed it, and the usual reaction set in. Even before the first ring sounded, her knuckles were locked so tightly around the receiver that her knuckles were white, and her heart had lurched into a fast, heavy pounding that made her feel as if she'd been running. Tension knotted her stomach. Oh, damn. She wouldn't even be able to talk coherently if she didn't get a grip on herself. The telephone was answered on the 6th ring, and by then Michelle had braced herself for the ordeal of talking to him. When the housekeeper said, "Rafferty residence?" Michelle's voice was perfectly cool and even when she asked to speak to Rafferty. "I'm sorry, he isn't in. May I take a message?" It was almost like a reprieve, if it hadn't been for the knowledge that now she'd have to do it all over again. "Please have him call Michelle Cabot," she said, and gave the housekeeper her number. Then she asked, "Do you expect him back soon?" There was only a slight hesitation before the housekeeper said, "No, I think he'll be quite late, but I'll give him your message first thing in the morning." "Thank you," Michelle murmured, and hung up. She should have expected him to be out. Rafferty was famous, or perhaps notorious was a better word, for his sexual appetite and escapades. If he'd quieted down over the years, it was only in his hell-raising. According to the gossip she'd heard from time to time, his libido was alive and well. A look from those hard, dark eyes still made a woman's pulse go wild, and he looked at a lot of women. But Michelle wasn't one of them. Hostility had exploded between them at their first meeting 10 years before, and at best, their relationship was an armed standoff. Her father had been a buffer between them, but now he was dead, and she expected the worst. Rafferty didn't do things by half measures. There was nothing she could do about the loan that night, and she'd lost her taste for sorting through the remainder of her father's papers, so she decided to turn in. She took a quick shower. Her sore muscles would have liked a longer one, but she was doing everything she could to keep her electricity bill down. And since she got her water from a well and the water was pumped by an electric pump, small luxuries had to go to make way for the more important ones, like eating. But as tired as she was, when she was lying in bed, she couldn't go to sleep. The thought of talking to Rafferty filled her mind again, and once more her heartbeat speeded up. She tried to take deep, slow breaths. It had always been like this, and it was even worse when she had to see him face to face. If only he wasn't so big. But he was 6 feet 3 inches and about 200 pounds of muscled masculinity. He was good at dwarfing other people. Whenever he was close, Michelle felt threatened in some basic way, and even thinking of him made her feel suffocated. No other man in the world made her react the way he did. No one else could make her so angry, so wary, or so excited in a strange, primitive way. It had been that way from the beginning, from the moment she'd met him 10 years before. She had been 18 then, as spoiled as he'd accused her of being, and as haughty as only a teenager standing on her dignity could be. His reputation had preceded him, and Michelle had been determined to show him that she couldn't be lumped with all the women who panted after him.